Welcome to Dhammahada, your favorite English Dhamma discussion. First of all, let me quote something, some food for thought from the Dhammapada. The Noble Eightfold Path is the greatest of all paths. The Four Noble Truths is the greatest of all truths. And let me say, detachment is the greatest of all states. The Buddha is the greatest of all human beings. With that, I would like to give a green light to our program today. Of course, we have invited a resource person who is not at all a stranger to you, but let me introduce him to you in case there are viewers who are watching us for the very first time. Our resource person today is Mr. Vipula Wanigasekera, former senior Sri Lankan diplomat, head of Tourism Board, now Chief Executive Officer of the Convention Bureau of Sri Lanka Tourism. He is also a lecturer in tourism and marketing. And I would also like to call him a meditation teacher because he does conduct meditation lessons specially for tourists. And I think that gives a very good impression of our country to all the tourists who come here. And Mr. Vipula Wanigasekera is also the proud author of his maiden book, Pointers to Enlightenment. Sir, we warmly welcome you to Dhammahada. Now, since we have been meeting and we have had several discussions about Dhamma, I thought that we'll talk about, from the Sutra Pitaka. There are lots of sutras that all of us are interested, and we have our favorite ones, and yet it is very, very important to know the meanings of these sutras and what can we learn from them and how can they enlighten our lives. So if I just ask you from the Sutra Pitaka, what sutra attracted you the most?
Yes, actually there are so many, thousands and thousands of sutras, and the Buddhists and anyone who is interested in knowing the sayings of Lord Buddha at many places, at many times, to many people. Today we have the opportunity of referring to these sutras, and also one advantage is today you have the access to internet, and practically every sutra is there with descriptions and so on, which is a great advantage for those who are actually wanting to know. Now, of course, it all depends on which sutra would you like most, but it depends on your own characteristics. The people get attracted to so many versions. So therefore, many people will say that I like the sutras in the smaller versions like Khuddaka Nikaya or Anguttara Nikaya, while the others would like the longer version. So it depends on various people. But in my case, there are few which really strike. It gives you something to work on. For instance, Bahya Sutra, which Lord Buddha was telling Bahya, when he was asking how to, find the truth, and it was, a few lines which he mentioned saying that, if you have seen something, you have only seen it. If you have heard something, you have only heard it, although it's a very small version, there is an in-depth to that. So you need, and there is Rohitassa Sutra, then Chulla Palukyavade. These are very interesting sutras which have striking messages. And one of the sutras that I actually recently was able to listen to, actually, it was a sermon given by a Buddhist monk, and it is Danya Sutra. This is all about detachment and how the attachment and clinging cause the suffering. But it is presented in a beautiful way, and actually now Dania is a merchant and a super rich a cowman or a cattleman, because he owned over 30,000 cattle and he was in the milk producing business. And he built his organization in such a way there were thousands and thousands of people working for him, and he was the main distributor of all milk-based products to the entire city. And one day he was, after work, after a hard days of work, he came home. He was sitting in his chair in the veranda, and he looked out and he saw this dark clouds were gathering, and there was going to be a thunder shower, and also he felt that it's going to be a gale or some kind of a cyclone kind of a thing. And the weather was certainly not good, and he knew that this bad weather was forthcoming. And then he was thinking of his own position with regard to this, what is now going to happen. The heavy rain, the thunder shower, the floods and the lightning, and all that, aftermath of this. And then, I must read this, this was like a poetry, and he was like a poetry. He was saying this: the rice is cooked, my milking is done, I live with my people along the banks of the Mahi, that was a river that was going along, and my hut is roofed, house is very well built, he was, and the fire is lit. So if you want a rain god, go ahead and rain. So you can do anything you want, but I am secured, I am safe.
Yeah, and that's lovely.
It's so he that version has a connotation that I have everything. I have the people, I have a good house, and I am protected by rain and the sun and everything. So therefore, it can rain, any amount of rain. I'm okay. I'm okay with it. So I'm not affected. So there was in the same poetic language, a voice comes from the other side of the river, and he didn't know who he was, and he only heard the reply, kind of to what he said. And here comes the reply. It goes on, but I will only mention the few things.
Yeah.
And then, free from anger, my stubbornness gone, I live for one night along the banks of Mahi. My hut's roof is open, so I'm not protected. My fire is out, the fire is also blown out. So if you want rain god, go ahead and rain. So now Lord, this was actually Lord Buddha, but of course Dania didn't know. And he implied, all what you said I don't have, but I'm still not scared of this rain and the gale and the cyclone or floods or anything. Then let me also just mention this poetic dialogue. It goes on, and at the end, Dania realized that this is someone who is enlightened, and by that time he realized the truth. And all what he said was not true, because he was under the delusion that if you have all the material wealth, that you are protected, whereas Lord Buddha pointed out against everything that he was saying, that I don't have any of what you are saying, but I'm not scared of, just as much as you, I'm also not scared of this rain. And then at the end he was also telling his wife, because wife also came in halfway and was listening to this dialogue.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
It was a very interesting, and then Dania said at the end, how great our gain that we have gazed on the Blessed One. We go to Him, the one with vision for refuge. May you be our teacher. great sage, my wife and are compliant. Let's follow the holy life under the one well gone to the far shore of aging and death, a place where there is no birth
Aging
and death.
and
Yeah,
death.
aging. Let's put an end to suffering and stress. So now here someone who is a business tycoon, so to say, in today's modern language.
Yeah.
And at the end, after this dialogue, and says, look, we don't need any of these, and we only need to accept the enlightened one, and we'll be free from suffering. And in fact, the story goes that he.
Yes, I think it's very, very interesting.
And
Very
eventually, what
interesting,
happened
yes.
was he crossed the river with his wife and went to Lord Buddha and paid homage and said that we understood finally what you were trying to say, and we know that is where the truth is, but we need to be with you and we want to be your disciples. So he gave up everything and joined Lord Buddha, and they walked out of that city. In that night, that gale came, and not as Dania thought.
Not just a mild
Not just a
rain.
mild thing. It came and hit the entire city, and the entire city was flooded, and he lost the cattle, he lost the people. Even the house got submerged, and and they couldn't even find where the house was. But Dania and the wife, they were saved. The story is, of course, you can take it as a story on, like on the surface at mundane levels. He managed to escape what was really forthcoming. But the in-depth story, the core message is not that. There's a depth to that whole story, and which is good enough for anyone to read the true meaning of detachment.
Yeah, it's like if one thinks Lord Buddha rescued Dania's life, I think he rescued more than that.
Absolutely.
Had he been surviving, he would have been really upset because of the loss. But now he was extremely, he was really rescued, I would say, by Lord Buddha.
That is
Not
one,
only his life.
Yeah, that was one aspect of it, and the other aspect is he found freedom.
Definitely, that's
Yeah.
what I meant.
Yeah,
He
so-
was totally rescued.
Not only Lord Buddha saved his life,
Yeah.
which would have got affected with the weather, but also basically he confronted the truth.
Yes,
And how much would you value, in terms
Sure.
of wealth? Yes.
definitely.
So that's why I when I heard this sutra, there is a depth to it, and there's
Yeah,
a
and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I'm sure there would have been a longer conversation between the Buddha and
because there are some
Dania.
nice way of explaining this, but because of the
Yes.
time factor, I don't want
Yes.
to go through the whole thing.
Yes. So this is the core message of the Dania Sutra, is attachment.
Yes, and of course one should be very careful, because it is when you say tanha jayati soko tanha jayati ba. Now this is what it's all about. It's attachment causes suffering, and what causes true, it is the attachment, but what really causes suffering is the desire and the fear emerging from the attachment. The attachment, either it has a desire or it has a fear. So, it's just a desire, and you're always in the next moment, looking for the next moment, and looking for something better than your where you are now, and that is suffering. And the fear as to what is going to happen to you, your wealth, your family, and it's all that. When the attachment drops, what is left? It's freedom. That's the greatest wealth that one could gain.
Definitely. Yes.
And I think Lord Buddha did not have this. He was not trying to, in this sutra, trying to beat around the bush and try to give little bit of something. He point blank said, well, You are safe with your material gains. I am safe without any
of
those.
them.
That's very beautiful. And after all,
And that made the Aniya wonder.
yeah, that's the second part. You know, the man was intelligent enough to quickly assess what Lord Buddha was trying to convey. You know, and Lord Buddha also tested probably from the responses he was getting from the Aniya that this man is capable of understanding this.
Definitely. Yes. Now, talking about attachment, how much do you think that we are attached to the material world, I would say?
Very, very sadly, everything, you know, that you see, if you look around, and if one questions oneself, most of what we do in our lifetime is driven by this attachment. I'm not suggesting, you know, people should not, you know, advance in their career, people should not gain wealth, and I'm not suggesting that. After all, we have Lord Buddha himself has said various pleasures like Atti Sukha, Anana Sukha, Anavajja Sukha, and so on. So there are pleasures certainly, and I'm not referring to that, but the drive to acquire something, and then the attachment to your material gain, which you think will give you recognition for your existence in the world. Now that is very sad, because probably this wasn't the case some decades ago. The good and bad, you know, what you are talking today is also measured to some extent by either the amount of power people have, the amount of wealth people have, the amount of authority people have, the amount of publicity they have. So everything is connected to that. So people, you know, when they see what is happening, they get driven into this material gains, which they think will bring them happiness all the time, and that is definitely not true.
And I would say that most of the time they are engaged in trying to earn something more, but ultimately they don't have time for themselves in this process.
Yes, in the guise of security. Now, you see, a lot of people are looking for acquiring more wealth, thinking that it will assure sufficient security for their, and of course the comforts, you know, people would like to have comforts. Now there's nothing wrong in working hard and, you know, earning more money, but your attachment to that, your clinging on to that is the problem, because then your subsequent decision, how you act in the society, how you speak to people, how you associate people, all that is based on how much you are attached to these material gains, and which is very dangerous.
Definitely, yes. So now since we're talking about attachments, we have also heard of this word called clinging, and sometimes in Buddhist descriptions we find the word upadana or clinging. How do you see the difference between attachment and clinging?
You see, in scriptures this is described in detail, but in very simple language, what happens is that everyone, as human beings, the attachment can occur in so many ways. You know, you get attached to something, and that could be momentarily, but the moment you cling on to that, then you have no way out. You look at a beautiful flower, there is a certain amount of attachment. In split seconds you get attached to it.
Something like attraction.
It's an attraction, okay. and you are also attached to this, because that's why, you know, it gives you a beautiful feeling. But clinging is that I want this, I need this, it has to be with me, you know. And when I walk out of this room, I have no attachment to this. I enjoyed the beauty of that, that's true. There is a certain amount of attachment as a human being. we are not saying that, when you see that it's beautiful, don't look at it. It's nothing like that. There is a certain amount of, you get attracted to certain things. You get attracted to certain people. But what happens thereafter? Are you in a position to, in split second, drop that? And you are unaffected. Now, that's the way out of clinging. So once you cling on to something, and that comes with you all the time, and that changes your behavior, and you have no way out, because because then it creates beliefs, it creates opinions, it creates so many. I have to have this. I had this. I can't drop this. So with attachment, you at least have a chance of understanding it. But clinging, it veils your ability to see the true nature of life.
Yeah. Now, that makes me think of something like this. Now, we have, we have heard of people who have, climbed the ladder of success and have become very successful people in the world. That is because they had this goal that somehow I'm going to do it. So don't you think that they have been clinging on to that goal? I mean, we have heard a lot of success stories, and we have been, from childhood, we have been encouraged to read those people's life stories and to learn to cling on to that goal and succeed. How do you see this?
Well, that depends on how you measure the success. If someone thinks the amount of wealth or the amount of power, if you are worth so many billions of dollars, that is called success. So if that is what we mean success, well, then what you say has